Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode of our Huawei Lab simulation series. In our last episode, we discussed how to perform basic route import between BGP and OSPF protocols without using route policies. So you can see that we've configured BGP between R1 and R2. So on R1, if we display BGP peer, you can see that the relationship between R1 and R2 is established. And on R2, we've configured OSPF in S200. So we have OSPF running between R2 and R3. So if you display OSPF peer brief, you can see that we have OSPF between R2 and R3. So for us to be able to import routes between BGP and OSPF, we did some configurations on R2. So if I display current configuration OSPF, you can see that we have import route BGP without any route policy. Similarly, if I display current configuration BGP, you can see that we have import route OSPF, and we have just specified the OSPF process but not specified any route policy to control the route import between the two protocols. So when you don't use any route policies, you are importing everything from BGP to OSPF and also from OSPF to BGP. So on R1, if I display IP routing table, you can see that we are getting some eBGP routes coming in, and these are the loopbacks of R2 and R3, and also the point-to-point connection between the two routers is also coming in via eBGP, which have been learned through OSPF imported. So we have performed route import from OSPF to BGP on R2. Similarly, on R3, if I display IP routing table, you can see that we are getting 1.1.1, which is an OSPF external route that is coming in because we have done route import from BGP to OSPF. So we haven't done any route policies to control the route import between the two routing protocols, and that is not the best practice. I've mentioned that the best practice is to control what you want to import between the two processes, the two protocols, BGP and OSPF. So with this in place, if I were to go to R3 and I configure another loopback, interface loopback 100, and I give it IP address 100.100.100, mask is 32, and then I go to OSPF 100. OSPF was OSPF 10. So if I go to OSPF 10, now it should be not 110, this should be OSPF 10. Display this, and I do network. It is area 0 and then network 100.100.100.100. So once we have advertised this route in OSPF, this route will also be imported from OSPF to BGP. So you can see that in this one we have 100.100.100 land via eBGP, because on this router we have done route import without using route policies. So we don't have control on which routes are imported between the two protocols. The best way to do this is to use route policies. So without policies, we are able to control the specific routes. Only specific route that we have defined will be imported between the two protocols. And for us to do this, first we need to know which routes we need to import between the two protocols, and then we need to configure IP prefixes. The IP prefixes will be matching the specific routes or the specific prefixes that we want to import between the two protocols, and then we can now configure route policy. This route policy will be matching the IP prefixes, and when we do the route import between the two protocols, we'll be specifying the route policy that has been configured. So on R2, I need to configure. Let me first remove these. So it is OSPF 10. Display this. I will undo route policy, undo import route BGP, and then I'll go to BGP. This is BGP 200 and do import route OSPF 10. So the next step, let me undo terminal monitor so that it doesn't disturb our configurations. I'll go back to the system view. So one thing that we need to do on this, we just want to import the loopback of R1 from BGP to OSPF, and then we want to import the loopback of R3 from OSPF to BGP. So we'll create two IP prefixes, one to merge 1.1.1.1 and another one to merge 3.3.3. So on R2, I'll configure IP prefix. You can use question mark 10 permit. Let me give this one a name. So IP prefix. I will call it BGP to OSPF. Index 10 permit. I'll permit 1.1.1 masks 32. Then I'll configure another IP prefix. So IP prefix OSPF to BGP, and then I will specify index 10 permit 3.3.3 mask 32. So once we have the IP prefix, we'll go ahead and configure the route policy. So you can configure route policy, we call it same name, BGP to OSPF. You can use a question mark permit node 10 question mark, and then we can use if match IP prefix. The IP prefix is BGP to OSPF. That is it. If you can display this to see the configuration, quit will create the next policy. So we have route policy OSPF to BGP. Always use a question mark permit node 10 if match IP prefix. So we are merging the IP prefix that we have configured. This is OSPF to BGP. There is space IP prefix OSPF to BGP. So we have a display current configuration to show you the. So we have the two IP prefix, we have the route policies. Now, when we are importing these routes from one protocol to the other, we'll be using these route policies to control the route import between the two protocols. So let me now go to OSPF 10, and then I will run the command import route BGP. If you use a question mark, you have the route policy. So you are importing BGP to OSPF, so we'll use the policy BGP to OSPF. You can also use a question mark if you have other parameter that you want to set based on the requirements. So that is it. I'll go to BGP. So BGP 200 import route OSPF route policy. This is OSPF 10, then we specify the route policy OSPF to BGP. Display this, you have your import command with the route policy. So when we go to R1, if I display IP routing table, you see that we have only received 3.3.3. We are now not getting the other prefixes. We are not getting 100.100. We are not getting the point-to-point IPs. We are not getting the loopback of R2 because our policy specify that we are only importing 3.3.3.3. On R3, if I display IP routing table, you can also see that we are only getting 1.1.1. We are not getting any other prefix. So if I were to configure any other prefix on R1, we will not get it because it's not specified in the IP prefix. So this one, it's very easy to control. Like you will not receive the route that you don't want. You only get the route that you require for the communication between different networks. So this is how simple it is. Again, using the route policy, the first stage is to identify which prefixes you want to import from which protocol to which protocol. Once you've done that, you need to configure the IP prefixes. Once you've configured the IP prefixes, you go ahead to configure the route policies. And when you do the route import in the protocols, you need to specify that route policy. Then you will have control over which routes are being imported from one protocol to the other. This is the most recommended way to do the route import. So you won't get so many unnecessary routes. You only get what you want, or you only get communication between the prefixes that you want to communicate. All the others will not be imported, and this one of course will help you to control the size of your routing tables. I hope you've enjoyed this session, and if you are yet to subscribe to our channel, kindly support by subscribing to our channel, and also stay tuned in for more upcoming videos. Bye, and see you in our next episode.